I'm going to start. Good morning, everyone. If people could start taking seats, that would be fantastic. Anyway, good morning. Good morning. Give everyone a second to settle. Good morning. All right, we are ready to get started. Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito, Secretary Kennealy, Undersecretary Stolba, Representative Blay, Representative Barrett, former Senator Adam Hines, our wonderful hosts from the beautiful town of Ashfield, and all of our guests, welcome to today's event. My name is Carolyn Kirk. I am the Executive Director of the Mass Tech Collaborative, which is home to the Mass Broadband Institute. And today's event is twofold. First and foremost, a celebration of the amazing progress that has been made towards the Last Mile project. And also, it's a formal kickoff for the statewide effort around digital equity. So you'll learn more about that today. In today's event, you're going to hear from the state leaders who have driven the investments that have made today possible. We'll hear from community leaders that have been on the front lines. And of course, we will hear from those impacted and benefit from this fast, wonderful fiber to the home service you have in Ashfield. Before we begin, I need to and would like to recognize a few other folks that are here. My fellow members of the Mass Broadband Institute Board of Directors. We have Karen Charles Peterson, the Commissioner of the Department of Telecom and Cable for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Linda Dunleavy, the Executive Director of the Franklin Regional County of Governments. Sean Cronin from the Commonwealth's Division of Local Services. And Don Dubendorf, who's been a leader on broadband in Western Mass for, dare I say, decades. Where's Sean? There he is. Sean Cronin, what's up? I would also like to thank Michael Baldino, who is the director of the Mass Broadband Institute, and the team's tireless efforts in driving towards the implementation of the mandate to bring broadband infrastructure to the Commonwealth, particularly Western Mass, and our emerging efforts to overcome the digital divide. We have in attendance Stuart Freeman, who is a Federal Program Officer at the U.S. Department of Commerce and National Telecom and Information Administration, or NTIA. NTIA was a partner and a funder of the Middle Mile Network, of which most of our towns tap into to make the last mile connections possible. And now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce the 72nd Governor of the Commonwealth. Governor Baker has been fierce in his insistence that we solve the last mile problem once and for all. Between him and Lieutenant Governor Polito, they steeped themselves in the details. They cleared roadblocks out of the way. They held the team accountable for delivering results. And they regularly engaged with the communities in their progress and in their success, which brings us here today. Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito, thank you for your service.
Thank you. Please. So, first of all, Carolyn, thank you for your service and for the work that you and your team have done. And to Bill, and where's Peter? The guys on the ground, thank you for all you've done to make this project happen. And to Lieutenant Governor, who cracked the whip about as hard as it can be cracked for months after months after month, to hold together all of the various players who are a key part of making this happen. You will always be, in my opinion, the MVP on this one. You know, I don't know how many of you have heard me tell this story about how I was introduced to this problem. I was supposed to speak at a forum that then State Senate President Stan Rosenberg was having in the Berkshires, and something came up and I had to go speak at a conference somewhere. This was, I don't know, March or April after we took office. Is that about right? You think it was Las Vegas? Cool. So this is like before the pandemic too, which is kind of interesting. So I said, well, I'll take my laptop and maybe I can set it up in my hotel room and we can have the conversation that Stan wanted to have that way. And so the story as it goes from Stan's end is that I think he put like a laptop on a table, right? And all you could see was like this big giant head of mine if you were looking into the laptop, which is good because I think all I had on was a T-shirt and my underpants. And one after another, these people would come and they would sit in front of the laptop, and all I could see was a big head too. So it was head-to-head conversations. And it was one person after another talking to me about the agony that came with not having high-speed internet in their communities. And at the same time that was going on with me, the Lieutenant Governor, who was in the process of hitting all 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts, was hearing the same thing in all of her visits. And when we inquired about this, the message we got from some of the folks who were involved in the project at that time was that people didn't want it. And yeah, I know. When we pushed on this, it turned out that what they didn't want was the single solution they were being sold. So, enter Bill and Peter, and Carolyn and her team, and Mike, and the development of what I've always referred to as sort of the menu of options that were developed based on conversations with folks across these 53 communities about what options might work. And this was a really good example of what happens sometimes in the shorthand of conversation. There's a big difference between I don't want it and I don't want that one. And once we put together the menus, people got very interested in it. And then our colleagues in the legislature came through with some very serious resources to make this happen. I think all in, we probably spent about $57 million on this. And we actually wrote this up and gave it to Mitch Landrieu, who's the current driver out of the White House of the bipartisan infrastructure law, and said, if you really want to understand how to do rural broadband, I know you don't think about Massachusetts as being sort of traditionally the way you think about this, but we've actually done it, and it might be useful to you. And Mitch told me the last time I was in D.C. that booklet was very helpful to them as they thought about how they were going to do broadband rurally across the country. But in the end, this project planted 40,000 telephone poles. And we went and watched how they did this in certain parts of Massachusetts. And, you know, you sit there and you watch a pile driver pile drive a hole and literally hit the same spot 50 times and get that deep into the bedrock. You realize just how hard, because we were very frustrated about how long the pole digging was taking. And we finally said, you know, we really need to go see this because we don't believe you. And when we got out and had a chance to watch how hard it was to dig some of these holes, I think we at least sympathized with the fact that it was probably going to take a while. But in the end, it was 40,000 poles. It was 2,000 miles of fiber that got laid. 2,000 miles of fiber is 10,560 feet of fiber. It's 35,200 football fields worth of fiber that we laid together out here in Western Mass. And as a result, all 53 communities do have service at this point in time, 46 of which have full service, 7 of which are currently in the process of finishing it off. And it services about 26,000 households and small businesses across the region. And in some ways, you know, I think about you all the time when I think about the pandemic, because so many people had it. And there were folks out here who still didn't. And if you had it, the difference it made in the disruption, the anxiety, and the agony that came with the pandemic was profoundly different than if you didn't. And I'm glad we got a head start on it. And I'm very glad we got as far as we got. I know for a lot of communities it made a big difference during that 2-year period of time. But this is a project that I think both the Lieutenant Governor and I and our teams will consider to be one of the true collaborative efforts involving everybody to get something done that desperately needed to get done as a foundation. And we are pleased to be able to say that between some of the federal grants that are available and the bipartisan infrastructure law, we expect at some point we'll probably have somewhere in the vicinity of $350 million from the feds that we can use to deal with the digital divide that Carolyn talked about going forward. I think we've already laid a platform here and a set of toolkits around how to do this work that can be enormously helpful. And I think about half of that, about $145 million of that money will start to become available over the course of the next few months. This is a total team effort. We're incredibly grateful for all the work that so many people in Western Mass put into this, and I'm incredibly proud of the team and the work that they did to make this happen, because this is like running water and electricity, and I really do hope that it serves as a benchmark for Western Mass going forward with respect to how you live and how you operate in your communities here in Massachusetts. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the MVP, the Lieutenant Governor, Karyn Polito.
It's great to be here with all of you. This is a beautiful town hall. It was a wonderful ride here. It's just a wonderful day for us, and it's really a bookend moment for our administration as we come here. I'm not surprised to see a full house. This is obviously a really important issue to all of you and to all of us. So let me just follow up with where the governor kind of left off and say thank you. Thank you for the incredible honor to have been part of the team of people to help solve this problem for our Commonwealth and for this part of our state. I was at that meeting with Stan Rosenberg, and I was in the room hearing and feeling that intensity and that level of frustration with government not working for them. And I left there feeling really anxious that we had a lot of work to do here. Follow up a few months, it was another season in the summer, I remember coming to the town of Heath. And I don't know if anyone was in the room then that's here today. A couple of hands. It was me and my traveling assistant that day. And you were in the room and you were very upset. And there were a lot of crossed arms and long faces for the right reasons. And I took it all in and again went back to the governor and said, we got a problem. Thankfully, we had resources. The legislature knew that there needed to be authority with bond capacity to help build out the infrastructure. But we needed a real plan that could meet each community where they're at. The piece that's really meaningful to us and to me as I come here to this moment is we live in this incredible state, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I live in the central part of the state. A lot of people in the East think I live in Western Mass. And I felt on the campaign, when we were coming through the Western Mass on our campaigning in 2014, so many people would say, really nice to see you on this campaign. Good luck. You might get elected, you might not. But then we might never see you again. And I heard that so many times. And then when we came into office and we found this issue to be in such a vulnerable place, I felt that. And I said, this is a part of our Commonwealth equal to every other part. And yet the divide is so real when it comes to basic infrastructure. Where in Eastern Mass and Central Massachusetts, we just take for granted connectivity. And that there were 53 communities that did not have it. And that to us doesn't represent who and what the Commonwealth is all about. And so, as I often look at issues, and the governor knows this, I look for the opportunity, and I see the glass as half full, as opposed to empty. And the half full came from the people that we were able to assemble on this team to help us solve the problem. I see Peter Larkin right here in the front row because I knew you when I served in the legislature, and I knew someone of this community had to be on that high-level team to be able to build the trust necessary with each of these communities and the municipal leaders to help work this through. So thank you for saying yes, Peter. And I want to turn to Bill Ennin, someone who obviously knew a bit about broadband from Western Mass and lived the experience. And so these two individuals were part of that team of trust that helped us have the ability to sit down at your tables and to listen to you, really listen over and over and over again, and troubleshoot and problem solve and change and tweak and adjust all the way through with your guidance, Carolyn, and others to see this happen. I'm so glad Nancy is with you here today, Bill, to celebrate this moment. You and Peter did an incredible job. I love that map. I'm always the one in the office that would say, okay, where's the map of the Commonwealth? Where do the grant programs stand? How are we getting to everybody? And that represents a lot of great work. and the 7 are almost there. So I really wanted to see this whole thing green by the end of our administration, and we're going to be very close, but we clearly know that's going to happen. And then we're going to do more, and I think Ashley and Mike Kennealy will talk about the more and the next around the stuff that we learned a lot in the pandemic about how to keep you connected, and then look at the further gaps and use of technology to continue to evolve in this process. So the devices, technology, education, digital literacy, all the things that are going to be needed to help us enhance the basic infrastructure that you have all through Western Mass and our Commonwealth, because we still have a lot of gaps. I want to thank the providers and the utilities, certainly bringing the infrastructure from pole to pole was an essential piece of this project, but then getting the infrastructure from the pole to your home was another piece of it. Westfield Gas and Electric, where are you? I just want to say thank you to all of you. Incredible work. And Comcast, Charter, Fiber Connect in Y Valley. You're all here in the room. Please stand, raise your hands. Thank you. I have to say, as tedious as those make-ready calls were, they were a lot of fun, especially in person. For me, maybe. For me, in person, but then, of course, all through the pandemic, we used Zoom to continue to connect. No one was off the hook. But what evolved in that process was a real sense of camaraderie and commitment to each other. These are providers that sort of notorious for, okay, we can't do this because they haven't done this, and we can't do that because they haven't done this, and there was a lot of this pointing going around. And that's when we knew that we had to really get everyone to work together and support each other. And so that common schedule and the attention to those details and working through those at the meetings and then in between those meetings helped you help each other and therefore help all of you. And I think that was really the secret sauce of this, that you had these incredible abilities, but not necessarily the incredible collaboration that was needed to get this job done. I also want to thank our partners in state government, Francesca, Mass DOT, incredible job. And Karen Charles Peterson, the DTC Commissioner, thank you. And I want to thank you, all of you, for continuing to help me do a better job for our administration and through the Community Compact Program, and thanks to the legislature for your continued funding from the beginning of our administration, we evolved and developed new ways to assist you through IT, community compacts, best practice grants, through all the infrastructure grants, through the Community Compact, the Municipal Fiber Grant Program, the regionalization efforts. I'm just going to highlight a few because I think this is important, around the creation of redundant municipal fiber in Charlemont and Heath and Leiden and Rowe, in Egremont and Town of Washington, working with Beckett, Blandford, and Otis. I mean, doing amazing work. Small communities, small teams in your town halls, but when you work together, you really are creating the infrastructure for Western Mass that's equal or even better than some parts of Eastern Massachusetts. And what finally I feel at this moment is where we're at, is post-pandemic, where people can live and work virtually anywhere, right? And so many people chose during pandemic to move into Western Massachusetts because it is such a beautiful place to live. And the ability for them to be able to live here and work here and receive telehealth from here, and students to remain or be connected to school, whether college or their regional school, all can happen here. And so because of this last mile project that was resourced but not fully developed until now, seeing this day come allows for so much more opportunity here in Western Massachusetts. And as we roll through our final days of office, I feel satisfaction in knowing that our work as your government, municipal, state, working with our private partners, that we've delivered on a promise and that we've made it possible for you to not only think about, your hopes and your dreams, but to make them real. And so this basic infrastructure makes a whole lot more possibilities become real for you, for your children, for the future residents and small business owners and people who will establish deeper roots here in Western Massachusetts. So I come here feeling satisfied and very proud of what we were able to accomplish together. And as the governor said, if we wrote the playbook here in Massachusetts, we are certainly able to share that with other communities in the country who are facing this very problem today and lack that connectivity to be able to build a life and to build an economy around. And I'm thrilled that at this point, after a lot of pain, we're able to share that as more federal dollars are reaching the states and communities like ours to be able to do what we just did together. So congratulations to all of us and to all of you. Thank you for the honor and the opportunity to work with you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm now going to turn this over to Mike Kennealy.
All right. Lieutenant Governor, thank you so much. Great to be here with the governor and you and everybody else. I do want to ask the folks from my office, from Housing and Economic Development, and folks from Mass Tech Collaborative to stand up if you could, please, and be acknowledged. This is the team that's really made this work happen, and congratulations and thanks to all of them. And it's great to be here with everybody today. And you think about all the folks in the room from our administration across many different parts of the administration, from the legislature, from local government, community groups, business groups. This is how we get things done in Massachusetts. We work in partnership, state government, local government, the community, and business, working together to address important problems and important opportunities. And I will say, this work illustrates so much of how the governor and lieutenant governor encourage us to work and how encourage us to plan and get things done. Get on the road, get in the communities, get into the details, understand where the problems and opportunities are, develop partnerships, develop the funding strategy, and get things done. So it's a wonderful story today to celebrate this last mile effort. Obviously, broadband's been an important focus of ours from the very beginning. This work has existed in a few different chapters, if you will. The last mile effort goes back to 2016. Today, $57 million invested to help 53 towns get online. During the pandemic, obviously, we saw how important internet access was. As we think about making sure the state is competitive economically and making sure all of our citizens, all of our communities can compete effectively, we know how important broadband access was. So we stood up public Wi-Fi hotspots around the state in 2020. We announced the Mass Internet Connect program to help job seekers get online. We developed innovative community partnerships to address digital equity and affordability and access in our communities. And today we announced some programs that are sort of the next iteration of this strategy. As the governor mentioned, $350 million of state and federal funds to advance this objective of digital equity. And so I want to make a couple announcements today on a couple of these programs. So one is, that we're announcing today, is a Digital Equity Partnerships Program, which will support organizations including regional planning agencies, philanthropic foundations, public and nonprofit service providers, to launch programs that address enhanced internet access, digital literacy, availability of devices, and education and outreach efforts. That's one, a Digital Equity Partnerships Program. And the second is a Municipal Digital Equity Planning Program, which will enable municipalities to undertake digital equity planning activities to understand the needs of their citizens better. And these planning activities will result in strategic documents designed to guide future municipal decision-making and investments around procuring services, key community assets that will increase access and usage of the internet, particularly for populations most impacted, again, by COVID-19. So these, again, are important parts of the next iteration of the strategy, which is about $350 million in state and federal funding. Undersecretary Stolbe will get into some more of the details there. But it's a day both to celebrate this incredible effort around the last mile strategy and announce the go-forward strategy as well. And as always, the work continues, and the work continues in partnership. With that, I want to bring up Undersecretary Ashley Stolbe. Great to be with all of you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Secretary Kennealy. And I know some of you, but for those of you I don't know, my name is Ashley Stolbe, and I'm Undersecretary of Community Development for the Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development. Don't try to say that 5 times fast. But it is such a pleasure and a true honor to be here with you all today. I know so much work has gone into this effort, and it really is a sign of true collaboration among everyone in this room that we are at this point. And again, kudos to the Governor and Lieutenant Governor. You set this as a key priority throughout the entire administration, and because it was a priority, we were able to execute on this work. So thank you so much for making it such a priority. So day to day, I have the pleasure of working alongside Bill and Peter as they close out the last mile effort, and I also work very closely with Carolyn's team at MBI, Michael Baldino and Brianna Weirs. I know Helena Frucio-Alsman from our office is also here. We're doing a ton of work as we think through how are we going to spend this $350 million? We're doing the planning, we're doing the applications, we're doing the strategy, and it takes a lot of time. So what we're going to do is we're going to put together a plan. We're actually going to put together 2 plans. We're going to put together a statewide digital equity plan, and we're also going to put together a 5-year action plan specifically as it relates to broadband infrastructure. Also, what we are going to do is we are launching today an online mapping tool on our website, and it is going to highlight, as the Lieutenant Governor mentioned, we still have gaps, and they're not only out here, they're all across the state. So we ask you to take a look at this map that's on MBI's website. We want feedback. We've had a great partnership with the private providers, and they provided us with a ton of information to support the data in this map on a voluntary basis. They've been completely voluntary, and we are so grateful for their partnership throughout this process. But the map is live, and again, it's an iterative process. We look forward to your feedback on that map. So as we think forward for all of these federal funds that are coming through, we want to do this together. We know that we work better when we work together as a team. We've certainly learned that here in the last mile effort. So we are creating a broadband and digital equity working group. And this is going to be comprised of industry leaders from all across the Commonwealth in all sorts of industries. And I know a few of the members of the group are here today. So Linda Dunleavy, who I know you all know, has been a longtime advocate for broadband access here in Western and Central Massachusetts. So we're delighted that you're able to serve on this group. Thank you. Amelia Dorsley, CEO of Urban Edge, who I've not seen yet, but I know is here. Dan Noyes, CEO of Tech Goes Home. Frank Robinson, Vice President of Bay State Health in Springfield, and Denise Jordan from the Springfield Housing Authority. So thank you so much for volunteering your time and your expertise for this group, and we are very, very excited to kick off this work. Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce some of the local community leaders who can talk about their personal experiences as it relates to broadband, that the impact it's had on them and also their communities. I'm now going to introduce State Representative Natalie Blais, who's been an unbelievable partner to us, not only in broadband infrastructure, but really pushing us to think differently about all of the infrastructure investments that we make out here in Central and Western Massachusetts. I believe, my own counting, you represent 14 of our last mile communities. I was counting them on the map yesterday, so correct me if I'm wrong, but that's a lot. So I really am just so grateful to be a partner with you. And then you will hand it over to Ashfield MLP Manager David Culp. Thank you.
What Ashley's not saying is that I dragged her and Juan out to Route 66 in Huntington and made them stand on the side of the road until they gave us some money. We are so grateful to be here today. It is a true honor, and this is really moving. This has been a long time coming. I do represent 19 communities here in Western Massachusetts, and and have worked alongside many of you in parking lots outside of our libraries and our town halls and our schools to get work done on behalf of constituents and residents here in Western Mass. I want to offer a very sincere thanks to the Baker-Polito Administration, Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito. What you've done is really incredible, and I want to thank you for providing us with the opportunity to be here together today to celebrate how far we've come. And that is a result of our collective efforts. I also want to take a minute to recognize my colleagues in the legislature who are here today. I'm the new kid on the block, and I want to recognize the efforts of those who came before me, including my former boss, Congressman John Olver. I'll never forget standing outside District 2 in the rain and the cold as we broke ground on the Middle Mile years and years and years ago. I want to recognize the efforts of Stan Rosenberg and Senator Adam Hines, who has always been a strong supporter for the town of Ashfield and many communities here in Western Massachusetts. I also want to recognize Rep. Barrett, who's here today from the far, great, beautiful West. Yes, the Golden West. I also see Rep. Sabadosa, Lindsay Sabadosa is here. I know Rep. Paul Mark, he was planning to be here. I don't know if he was able to make it, but our new senator for Ashfield, Paul Mark, representing 57 communities here in Western Massachusetts. We're excited to partner with him. I also just want to recognize Elena Cohen from Senator Comerford's office, who is a tremendous partner in our work here in Western Massachusetts. And finally, my predecessor, Steve Kulik, who was an incredible partner for so many years, for so many towns here in Western Massachusetts. Most importantly today, I want to recognize all of you. We are here today because of each and every one of you. You stood up again and again and again, year after year after year, and you told your stories about how the lack of connectivity was impacting your lives and it was impacting your communities. And wow, those stories resonated across our entire Commonwealth. Thanks to you, there was a growing understanding that communities in the Commonwealth were being left behind when it came to economic development, housing values, education, healthcare, public safety, and so much more because we didn't have access to 21st century technology. The approach that was eventually taken by this administration to allow communities to choose the right solution for them was innovative and it was remarkable. And make no mistake, it was difficult. But as a result of that painstaking work, we now have a different story to tell here in Western Massachusetts. Our story is that you can live in our communities that are now connected with the technology that will help them thrive. These are communities where individuals and families can live and work and be a part of a community like the one that we are in right now, the town of Ashfield. And you can enjoy a spectacular quality of life surrounded by natural beauty. Today's celebration is really, truly a testament to the strength and resiliency of some of our tiniest, but certainly some of our mightiest communities in the Commonwealth. And I'm so honored to be able to work alongside all of you to make this a possibility. As you noted, the work is not done. We have so much to do around digital equity going forward. And we're lucky to have people like David Culp as partners in this effort. He's a mastermind who worked night and day to bring broadband here to Ashfield. When I was first, I don't even think I was elected yet, David, I ran into him right outside the front steps of Ashfield Town Hall. And I got a briefing on where the efforts were here in Ashfield. And we are here today because of people like David Culp, who were relentless in their efforts to bring broadband to every corner of the Commonwealth. So with that, David, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito, Representative Blay, thank you so much, and many others from around the state, and to my colleagues in the hill towns nearby, a very warm welcome to Ashfield. We're very happy to have you here. It is a pleasure to be here and speak with you today, and indeed, I am especially pleased to actually stand here. You see, it was only about an hour ago that I was hiking through our beautiful Ashfield woods. It was a bright, crisp day. Characteristically, I hadn't seen another person or car on my 90 minutes until I came upon a neighbor of mine about a mile from my house, who also happens to be the Ashfield town clerk. And Alexis said to me, "I thought you would be in town hall for the Broadband event." And I said, "Oh no, that's tomorrow." Well, suffice it to say then, I'm extremely grateful that I happened upon Alexis. In the story I'm planning to tell, I think about my time as a professor, and absent-minded professor is still probably a very apt title for me. So anyway, I want to be very brief to tell you a story. Almost exactly 20 years ago, I was working in biotech in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I attended a workshop at Smith College. I quickly fell in love with the place. My wife was pregnant with my first child, and I convinced her to move here to raise our family. I was very fortunate to land a job as a tenure-track computer science professor at UMass. And soon a second child arrived, and we settled into a home in Ashfield, and I commuted to Amherst. And all we had was satellite internet at home, but at first it seemed bearable, especially since I spent my work days on campus. Well, all that came to a sudden change when my wife, Laura, was diagnosed at age 36 with stage 4 breast cancer. I took a leave of absence to care for her for the 15 months until she died, and I never went back to UMass, because I stayed home to father my 2- and 4-year-old daughters full time. It was an awful time, but also an incredibly loving experience that shaped me and my kids profoundly, and we persevered. And once my kids were both in school, I started looking for work, and long commutes were out of the question for me, because I was determined to raise my kids in this incredibly nurturing community. Tech work was difficult and often impossible from home due to our broadband limitations. And about 15 years ago, I started working with other community members in Western Mass to try to improve our internet. I won't bore you with the history. This is supposed to be a short story, and getting here took many twists. I often joked with my kids that they would probably have moved out before we got broadband, but almost miraculously, just as COVID hit, Ashfield started lighting up homes, and by the time September came around, we had almost every child in town connected for remote school, and my kids were in 10th and 12th grade. As for me, the most remarkable outcome was that I took a job in the fall of 2020 that would never have been possible without broadband. Along with the changing norms of work due to COVID, I now work from home as Vice President Research Informatics for a small pharmaceutical company called Olema. We are based in San Francisco with an office in Kendall Square in Cambridge, but I work almost exclusively from home managing a team of scientists using computational methods for drug design. We have our first drug heading into a phase 3 trial next year, and the disease that we are fighting is metastatic breast cancer, the very same type that killed my wife. And so I want to acknowledge all of the work that so many of you invested in getting us here today, and to express my gratitude for living a dream, working in Ashfield, and working to improve human health, thanks to you.
Thank you so much, David, for sharing your story. And I'm so happy that you went on a hike this morning and learned that the event was today. So as the governor and lieutenant governor mentioned, I mean, one of the reasons that this program was so successful was because we gave towns the flexibility to choose how they'd like to do it. So now I'd like to invite Kevin Donovan, Broadband Committee Chair in the town of Tolland, who can share his experience of working with a private provider network. Okay.
Thank you. Peter wanted me to make sure that you knew I represented the cable town, so I brought this up here. I brought that up here. But Charter and Fiber Connect and Y-Valley are the other cable providers that are providing internet to the hill towns out here. I want to thank the town of Ashfield for having this, and Peter for setting it up. I think I've been cracking the whip on him since I said we have to celebrate this, because Tolland is out near Sandusfield, and Sandusfield is where Governor DeVal Patrick celebrated the middle mile, if you remember, out at Farmington River School in Otis and Sandusfield. So I thought coming full circle would be good, but we don't have a town hall this big. So thank you for hosting us, Ashfield. I'd like to thank Peter and his staff again for putting it together, Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito, our selectmen. Steve Dell'Agostina is here, our chair, all of you, my wife Abby, who's back there somewhere. She is no longer a Wired West widow. And if any of you remember those Wired West meetings for 5 or 6 years, we sat in just like this, about as many of you as are here, in places like this. I think we were here once. We went all around. We went to every town, every month, for 5 hours. They were marathon sessions trying to figure out how to build this network. And it didn't happen until you came along. Thank you. I do have to thank Wired West for being instigators in this process as well. For me, it's been an 11-year journey to get fiber to the home. I now have fiber at my home, and I'm actually the last house on the street in the town, in the north part of town. There's no poles after me. I was asking them, how's this going to work? I'm at the end of the pipe. And they said, don't worry, you have a home run. You're all set. So, but we have a rural community in town of 525 homes. After moving there about 11 years ago, all I wanted to do, I think the last time we had a celebration like this was probably when we used one of these, right? But all I wanted to do was pick up that phone and make a phone call and hook up my cable and hook up my internet. And back then it was about 100 megabits per second. That was about the fastest you could get. But I found that the town was unserved. And when I see something that is not there, I want to fix it. So I stupidly got involved in the Broadband Committee and got involved with Wired West and spent a lot of time doing that. We had, the only thing we had for internet was hotspots. Back then they were slow, poor bandwidth, satellite, latency issues. You couldn't do any kind of Zoom meetings. In 2011, I joined that committee, and we worked intentionally and persistently to provide broadband to our town. I became the chair of that committee in 2013. Fast forward to 2019, after many fits and starts, we looked at wireless, we looked at hybrid wireless, we looked at several companies that wanted to build it that had never built a network. No one wanted to build a network in town except companies that hadn't built a network in town. So we looked at building our own. We decided there's too many miles. There's not enough density in Tolland. It was going to be very, very expensive. And we didn't want to run our own MLP. In 2019, well, before that, I actually met you at Don Hummison's fundraiser at East Mountain Country Club and at a point of high frustration. No, I know you were. And I walked up to I walked up, so people were trying to get a picture with the governor, and I'm like, I don't want a picture with the governor. I walked up, I think I walked up, I pushed them aside, and I said, we need internet in town. And you looked at me in the eye, you're about a foot and a half taller than me, and you said, we're going to get it done. And you did. That's great. So in 2019, from Peter and you two, but you're the chief, you're the MVP, head cracker, or head banger, whatever you called it, right? Head cracker, head whip. You got Comcast, Alicia Matthews out in Boston. Thanks to Wired West, we had 47% of the people in town had paid $45, if you remember that, to get nothing. To basically go, we want internet this bad. We'll give you $45 to show you that we want it. I used that information, and Alicia Matthews got that information, and she said, "Oh, well, maybe we got something here. Maybe we can live with that." So, it became a public-private partnership that gave us, we all had skin in the game. Our make-ready work came in half of actually what we estimated at Wired West. Yes. Yeah, I'm in between. I'm sorry. I'm in between getting you out of here, but I think we have the place till 3, don't we? So we saved the town. Comcast came in. They built a network. It's finished. It's on time. We're getting people hooked up now. We've saved close to over $1 million. We do not have to raise our taxes. The threshold was cover 96% of the town. In a town of 525, we're at about 99%. There's about 5 people that have to pay the extra to get it down their driveway. So it's a great thing. Some of the changes it's made, Peter asked me to put together some of the changes that it's made in some of these people's lives, and I interviewed some people in town. They don't have to go to the town hall or the restaurant to update their phones, right? If you have an Apple phone, it takes like an hour and a half, right? Phones, watches, iPads, Macs, all that. We have TV during storms now because we don't have satellite. You can make a phone call from anywhere in the house instead of sitting out on the back of your pickup truck. I have a neighbor. My neighbor said to me, he goes, I can now make a phone call in the house without standing out in my front yard because he's got VoIP. We have real unlimited data in the 3rd week of your billing cycle. How many folks ran out of that? We can stream without buffering. There's no involuntary pauses. You can actually download large engineering files without any problems. I have a neighbor that's also, we have a lot of vacation homes. He works on Wall Street. He can now come up here and work. He couldn't before. He just couldn't do it. People can work at their vacation homes, which is what you buy a vacation home for, right? To come and work. They're complaining they can't work because of the internet, but they got a vacation home. I don't get that, but and we have 15 small businesses that signed up with Comcast in town. So we're a little town. We're happy to be with Comcast. They've been great, all the folks there. So I just want to. I'll end because I took way too long, but you can't do anything about that. But there are many people to thank. Office of the Governor, Lieutenant Karyn Polito, Lieutenant Governor Karyn Polito, Peter Larkin. I have to thank former Governor DeVal Patrick, Cornell Roberts, Alicia Matthews, Ray Laborde, and Dave Henchy from Comcast. Selectman Eric Munson Jr., who's been our selectman for about 36 years, Steve Dell'Agostina, Patrick Barrett, Gloria Gary was the one who started our broadband committee, Danny Duvall, Miles Trachtenberg, Mark Ornstein, Hannah Gangaware. They were on the committee with me. We all worked hard. I have to thank them. And all the folks at Town Hall, all the townspeople who voted to support, that $1.5 million bond that got us started. Now, I did tag you two in a LinkedIn post, and you never liked it or anything like that.
I'm not on LinkedIn.
Your office is. So, yeah, and you are. But I got, there's a job section on LinkedIn. You should get on that. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. I have laughed and I have cried today. Wow. Now, Lieutenant Governor, you mentioned this map over here and how you wished it was all green. It is as good as green because today is Bill Ennen's last day. He retires from state service today. And that means
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And what an exquisite place to wrap the celebration up. I see Cornell in the back. Cornell and I were partners on Make Ready. As I've said to some folks, I have in excess of 100 pages of single-spaced notes on every pole, every corner, every connection, and Cornell was my partner in crime throughout this on behalf of the Lieutenant Governor every month, and it's good to see you here. There's one person who's not here that many of you know, and a treasurer who was sort of my North Star in this whole thing with regard to Make Ready is Joe Parda. And so he couldn't be here with us today, but I can't tell you what it meant day after day to be able to contact Joe and say, how do we get to this pole? How do we get over the Mass Pike? And working with Francesca and getting over the Mass Pike, incredible. So I know I just think of Joe. So Governor, Lieutenant Governor, I hope that someone, Carolyn, is going to organize a photo because I know all of these people want to have a photo with you. I do. I think a lot of us do, and we'll do that hopefully in a moment. So thank you, Nancy. Thank you. It's been the honor of my career to work with you, to work for you, to work on behalf of you. The honor of my career. I recently said that in some place when Michael Takakis was governor, I shook his hand in a paper mill in Irving because I was working on how to hang on to paper industry jobs in Western Mass at the start of my career working at the Franklin County Community Development Corporation. And I think the two of you surpass every administration I've ever worked around in the 36 years that I've been working. And without the two of you, this would not have happened. Unbelievable. Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to invite all of the folks who are representing last mile towns forward for photographs with Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito. Thank you all to our speakers. Thank you for being here. There's still refreshments downstairs. And come forward, please. Thank you. Okay. Okay.